The expenses reducer is already complete. In this one, we're going to finish off the filters reducer. First up, we need the ability to change sort by, and that is done via two actions, sort by date and sort by amount. If I dispatch sort by amount, the sort by value is going to be the string amount. If I dispatch sort by date, the value is going to be date, which is the default value as defined right here. Now down below, we can go ahead and use these action generators before they exist. Store.dispatch. I will start with sort by amount. And there's no need to pass any values in. All we need to do is generate the action object, which is going to be completely static, and then we'll dispatch it. We're going to do the exact same thing when we want to sort by date. Store.dispatch, right here, sort by date. Now, since date is the default, I'm going to switch it over to amount to watch that change. Then I'll switch it back to date. So it's actually going to be your challenge to get this done. When sort by amount gets dispatched, sort by should be set equal to the string amount. And when sort by date gets dispatched, the sort by property should get set equal to date. Actually getting that done is going to be your challenge. So once you do fill out the correct action generator functions and add the cases in the reducer, you should be able to watch the sort by value change, and those changes are going to print over here inside of the console. Take as much time as you need to get that done. You are going to be using the object spread operator. When you are done, test your work, then go ahead and click play. All right, how'd that one go? We're going to go ahead and kick things off by actually creating these action generator functions. So let me remove these comments, and up above, I'm going to create sort by amount and sort by date. Under sort by date, a new const, sort by date, setting it equal to a function that implicitly returns an object. There is no need to actually take any arguments in, and all we're going to set is the type, sort by date. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for sort by amount. I can actually take this, copy it down below, and just make some tweaks right here. Instead of sort by date, it'll be sort by amount, and then we'll just change the last word in the type, sort by amount. Perfect. So we have both of these in place, and if we save the file, we're not going to get any errors, but the data is also not going to change because we don't have any cases for these inside of the filters reducer. So we're going to go ahead and do just that. Right here, after set text filter or before, it doesn't really matter. We're going to add a case for sort by amount. When we see sort by amount, what do we want to do? We want to return a new object that represents the new filters object. We want to grab all of the values from the old one by using the spread operator on state. Then we want to set just one, that is sort by, and we're going to go ahead and set it equal to the string amount. Now we can do the exact same thing for sort by date. I can just take the case, copy it down below, and switch things up right here. Sort by date, setting the value to date as well. If I save the program, we should be able to now watch the data change over inside of the editor. I'm going to go back to 3 items before. Filters should be date, which is the default value for sort by. Then if I go to the one right here, it should be changed to amount. We are indeed getting amount. Finally, we switch it back to date. And if I dig into the filters object, what do we get? The last change we get, we have sort by set to date, which means that everything is working correctly. We're able to dispatch those actions and watch the data change. There are just 2 more actions we want to be able to handle. We have set start date and set end date. And once again, you're going to be responsible for knocking both of those out. How are we going to do this? We're going to do this by creating the 2 action generators and the reducer code. Down below, though, I will give you the actual calls. So to simplify the output we're seeing over in the console, I'm going to comment out all 8 of these lines where we actually use store.dispatch. This is going to have the effect of bringing the console to a much simpler to view location. Now we're going to be able to just view the changes we're making as opposed to having to also view all of these. We'll bring these back in a little bit later, which is why I'm commenting them out and not deleting them completely. So first up, we want to be able to use store.dispatch to change the start date. We're going to have a function set start date set start date is going to take the new date in. So for now, just think of dates as numbers. These are going to be timestamps, and we'll talk more about that later. So for the moment, we'll just think of it as a number, and we're going to go with 125 right here. Now we have this 125 value, and this action generator call should have the result of changing the start date value from undefined to 125. Now that is going to allow me to filter by start and end date, which means I also want the ability to clear those values. So I also want to be able to call set start date with no value at all. So I should be able to remove the 125, and the result here is that start date on the filters object should get set equal to undefined. Down below, we're going to have the exact same thing for set end date. I'll just copy this line to add that in. Set end date, and I'm going to set this equal to 1,250, and these are the only three calls that we're going to add in. So for both of those action generators, you want to make sure to grab the value. If it's not passed in, that's fine. We'll use undefined. Then you're going to set up the two cases inside of the filters reducer. And in the end, you're just going to check that the data changes correctly. So right here, we should have a start date of 125. Right here, we should have a start date of undefined. And finally, we should have an end date equal to 1,250. Take as much time as you need to knock that out. Test your work. Make sure the data does change correctly. Then you can go ahead and click play. All right, how'd that one go? Hopefully you were able to get that done without too much trouble. I'm going to kick things off by creating those action generators up above. We're going to create one right here for set start date. That's a const set start date. We are going to grab just one thing that is going to be the start date. Now there's no need to set up a default of undefined since that's the default value by default. So if there is a number passed in, great. If not, this will be undefined. That is the normal functionality for arguments. We are going to implicitly return an object, and on this object, what are we going to do? Well, we are going to set type equal to set start date. No surprises there. Whoops, that should be an underscore set start date. And we're also going to be setting start date itself, actually passing that data in as part of the action object. We're going to do the exact same thing for end date, just changing the names. Right here, we will have set end date. We will take in the end date. We will use the end date right here. And finally, we'll change the type from set start date to set end date. Awesome. Now we have both of the action generators in place, so the code's at least not going to fail, but it's still not changing the data. We have to set up the cases in our filters reducer to get that done. We will start off with the case for set start date. When we see that, what do we want to do? We want to change the state by returning the new state value. We're going to grab all of the old values by spreading out the state object. Then we're just going to set start date equal to action.start date. We're going to do the exact same thing for the other case as well. Make sure to actually use case. Had a little typo there. Down below, case for set end date. When we see set end date, what do we want to do? The same thing. We want to take a new object. We want to spread out all of the old state values, and we want to override just the one thing this particular case cares about. That is the end date. And we set up the new end date to be available on action.end date. Now, if we go ahead and actually save the program, we can test our work and make sure the data is actually changing. So right here, we have our first call. If I go into filters, we can see that start date is 125, which is correct. End date hasn't changed. That is expected. Over here, the value should get cleared. It is indeed cleared. It's back to undefined. And the last one should have changed end date. And that is exactly what we're getting. We have end date right here set to 1,250. Now this is going to allow us to filter our expenses later, and we'll set those values based off of whatever the user picks from some sort of calendar widget. But for now, we're just using static values in line, and this is perfectly fine for the moment. We now have a complete Redux store for our application. There are just a few small things I want to take care of at the end of this section before we move on to the next section where we actually integrate all of this into our React application. So stay tuned and I'll see you next time.